Sorry. It's up to Mr. Hazel.
I'll let it drop, so
Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm just, she talking about something.
I saw it. Yes,
Okay, thank you. Thank you. No, I'm not even.
Even Nick bailed on me today.
Go get surgery.
Even Nick bailed on me today.
You're cool. Double duty. Double duty in a long time. I think I gained a few more pounds since I've been out of the hospital.
We got Beth, we got Mary, Emily. Now I want to make sure this is working.
It's 5:30 by Apple time, but it's official.
Okay, it's official.
It'd be easier to call the roll just if we have anybody. I don't think we have anybody remote, but.
I don't see anybody on Zoom, no. But we will do a roll call. Beth Rahali.
Here.
Mary Catherine Hanna.
Here.
Emily Dubé.
Here.
Bill Mulder.
Here.
Andrew Bowman.
Here.
All right. Jack Deegan is absent. George Pete is absent. Mark Bidet is absent. Al Dyka is absent. We do have a quorum.
Meetings, minutes for a meeting on May 6th. So we had a chance to review the minutes. Any comments or corrections?
Move to accept the minutes.
Support?
Everybody's here, so you can do an all in favor.
That's something to know. All in favor?
Aye.
Remind me we can do that, because I'll probably forget. Public comment and correspondence for anything that is not on tonight's agenda. Looks like we have a couple of emails for topics that are on the agenda tonight. Is anyone here for anything that's not on the agenda? Moving on to new and old business. Public hearing, special land use. We have an issue with the forum because that is a special land use meeting at 6.
Yes. So the situation there is to get approval for special land use. It requires 6 positive votes or a 2/3 majority of the planning commission as a whole body, which means 6 positive votes. And with only 5 people here, unfortunately, that would not be possible. So we've been talking about that, and we do have a couple options. We can do a special meeting, or we can move this to, we have our master plan meeting coming up on June 3rd, and we could add this to that agenda as long as we make sure that as part of today's meeting, we discuss that and pick a date. We wouldn't have to then re-advertise for a public hearing, meaning we would need at least 15 days.
Would everybody, we get to vote for the ones who aren't here. So would anybody here, everyone here be in favor of doing a special meeting? We could even have people call in remotely, I assume. Is that acceptable? I mean, many that can be here would be here, but anybody who could be here would still be.
Oh yeah, via Zoom. Yeah, we still have that capability
So far.
so far.
So far, right.
Yeah.
How much public notice do we need? A week?
No, I think
This would constitute notice, I think, because it was advertised for tonight, and then the minutes would reflect tonight. That we would be voting. And I think, if no one, is there anyone here to speak on the application?
yeah, Rocky Baydoun is here.
Anyone other than the applicant, sorry.
Oh yeah.
But as far as public comment we can take tonight, we do have, it looks like an email referencing it. I mean, I would,
Can I ask the applicant?
Sure.
How much, I mean, would it help you to have this approval in 1 week rather than 2 weeks? Or the decision?
Basically, I would like to see hopefully an approval today, because here's the situation. If you put me till June 3rd, I can't move my stuff to the other location. Literally, we're approved. We're just expanding the location.
Right.
And in order for us to get everything ready and move it, we won't be able to open until the end of June. So we have a building permit. We started doing some work, and I did clear it with the city. As long as I don't move anything in there, we're
So it
good.
would help you to get a decision as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, and I'm hoping maybe I can get 5 votes here, and I don't know if you want to run it with how the system works behind the scenes, but it's just gonna really delay us.
Okay. We recognize that we're really sensitive to your.
We had 6 or 7 that were gonna be here until the last minute, couldn't make it, so I apologize. But if there, for the people that are here, maybe we could get one more. I mean, Monday, tomorrow, I mean, are there conflicts that people would have, or it would probably be a half
You
hour.
mean move this forward
Do a
and
special
do it
meeting.
quickly?
Do a special meeting.
If he can't be here, we could do it by Zoom.
You could.
It would be, or just be here.
Is it
I say,
Right.
let's try to do it tomorrow.
Tomorrow's
Anytime,
fine with me.
Hey, let's try to make a decision for this.
Well, I mean, I do have conflicts during the day, so
Yeah.
we would have to find an appropriate time, but yes, we could try to find some time tomorrow. But us picking the time tomorrow doesn't necessarily guarantee that the people who aren't here would be available at that time.
What if, here's a suggestion. Generally speaking, most people that work have a period of noon to 1 that they have lunch. Generally speaking, I know not always, but people work through lunches or they schedule all their meetings and stuff. And, maybe we could, Al or Jack or, George or Mark or, the ones that aren't here, maybe they could be available. Jeff is going to have to, work on that one to figure that out. But you could certainly try
We
that.
tentatively try it for noon tomorrow, and then if that doesn't work, set a time. That would give us the weekend
Yeah.
to secure 6 people for Monday and set a time for Monday.
Yes.
Is that acceptable?
Or can we notice 2 dates today?
Well, all that you have to do is announce the day, time, and place that the hearing is going to take place at this meeting. So to give it 2 dates,
That's what I'm saying, so
that's
I
not an
don't think
option.
we could set tomorrow at noon and possibly Monday.
We'd
We
have
would
to
have to
meet
set
tomorrow
tomorrow
at
at noon,
Then-
and then at that meeting, say, we don't have enough, we'll set it for Monday.
What about tomorrow at 5 or 5:30 when people aren't working? Wouldn't that be,
Well, you could try that too,
um,
but most people, we're starting the weekend and it's supposed to be
That's
warm,
So it
so.
might have a better, I mean, I
Better
think we
chance
can get
at
people
noon.
zoomed in at noon tomorrow, and I understand if you can't.
Right,
We're
I
down
mean-
one up, maybe.
Right, 11:30 works better for me
Okay.
tomorrow, but,
Does anybody here have a conflict with 11:30?
Let's take it.
no, that's good.
If we have to get 5 solid people at 11:30, let's take that time, and then we can try to round up one more.
Well, you can do, anybody can Zoom from any place, so it's not
Mhm.
that.
I thought maybe I could get Jack, because I think he's coaching baseball.
I mean, I can wait. If these
Let's
gentlemen want
see
to go
if
ahead, I can
somebody-
wait a little bit.
Yeah.
I'd rather do
Well-
that.
Should we table?
Oh, to see if anybody can get here tonight?
Yeah, if we could move it to
Okay.
the end of the agenda.
We can do that.
If we haven't produced a 6-1 body by
Yep.
the end, then we could set a special meeting for 11:30 tomorrow. Do the best we can.
Okay.
And I do want to,
Try
You don't
out.
need to address anything today?
Why don't we
Let's-
wait, just to see if you, at your option, we can either have you wait through the next item on the agenda, which might be a half hour, 45 minutes. Maybe we get somebody who can zoom in the meantime. If not, we'd be happy to try to meet with you tomorrow at 11:30. So that's your choice, how much you want us to.
Well, I'm over 50, so everything gets erased that night and I got to learn everything all over this. tomorrow morning. I already rehearsed for this, so if you push it till tomorrow, I'm going to forget it. So I'll wait.
Okay, well, and then we'll address it at the end of the meeting. And we can
Okay.
either set a special meeting for tomorrow at 11:30, or hopefully we get somebody who calls in.
Okay, thank you.
Andrew, I just want to let you know, when we started the meeting, I didn't have the Zoom set up correctly. We do have some people on here, no planning commission members,
Okay.
but we did have, and for their benefit as well, the first about 5 minutes of the meeting wasn't being broadcast on Zoom, but it is now.
Was there, the time that we were talking about public comment, was that up live on the Zoom, do you think not?
Not. So let's see if anybody has any public comment for anything not on the agenda. If anybody online has any thoughts there.
Hearing none.
David, is there anybody that I could try to go solicit while you guys are meeting?
You find,
Yeah, go arrest
you find
Jack.
Deegan in a ball diamond, can you tase him?
No, who would be like the best option? I'll go try to call him, or is there anybody?
I was texting Jack, 'cause I thought he might be at the field, but he
All
might
right.
be at a away game or something.
Okay,
You're a cool police chief.
I'll give it a try. I'll give him a call.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I unfortunately I don't know where George Pete, Mark Bidet, or Al Dyka are, but they
Al's
said they
gonna
can.
be here at some point. So no public comment for anything that's not on the agenda, correct, on Zoom?
Correct.
So moving on to public hearing for site plan amendment, referencing Take Two condos, which is the CBD overlay, whereas the old hotel centers where there's 2 private residents and 2 mixed-use buildings. I should probably disclose, I don't have any vested financial interest in the project that's the application tonight. I've met the applicant one time, I think I took a picture when I was taking the real estate sign down, but if anybody, I think normally, I did have the listing when they purchased the property, I didn't represent them in the sale. So I think normally we do these circumstances is ask if people feel, I don't want to duck a vote, and that's sort of why we put the system in place. We had some things come up years ago where people suddenly magically became conflicted when something was somewhat, would have made coffee the next morning a little warmer. So if anybody, I would either abstain or I'm happy to participate, but I guess I would leave it to the planning commission.
It's fine. Do you feel like you can be impartial in this a little bit?
I hate generators. Yes,
I don't
I
have
think I actually
construction.
own the same generator, so I at least know what they sound like. No, yes, I do believe I can be impartial. There's no financial benefit based on this, I don't sell generators.
I'm okay with it.
I'm okay with that.
Oh, fine.
Moving on then to, there's someone here from the application that can speak to what's being requested and sort of give a brief overview and see if we have any questions.
Yeah, several of us, would you like to do that, or is Larry or Jeff give an overview first? It's been a couple years since I've been here, so believe it or not.
Might be helpful, just there's some members that aren't familiar with this approval from the beginning, and then Larry, would you want to give your memo after we kind of give the?
Sure, I can do that.
That
Yeah.
makes sense.
Sure, happy to. Okay, my name is Rob Mossberg. I am the developer of the entire subject project down there, and also the builder for Mr. and Mrs. Charles. And the subject property really is 285 East Bay Street. It's the easternmost residence that's under construction right now. This part, also with me is Nick Weaver, the architect of record. So I could probably answer questions more to our historical approvals and those kind of things related to the entire site. We have questions in the input with regard to the specifics of the location of the units, the generator, air conditioner stuff. That's probably Nick's area. And then Mr. Charles, the owner of the property, is here as well. If you'd like to ask him any questions. But I think the brief history is that a few years ago we go through this rigorous process. We get the approvals. Not exactly sure why, to be honest with you, but we did not note on the residential portion of the development where the air conditioning units would go. We noted where the utility hookups are, kind of per the city's requirements and plans, but for some reason we didn't put that on the plan. I believe it's because together we're not used to doing that in kind of residential applications. Maybe we should have, but we didn't. It just got away from us. And we knew that from the commercial side of the development, they were going to go on the roof anyway. So before we came here tonight, obviously we have this house at 275 East Bay. It does have an air conditioning unit between the two homes. We have a C of O. It's been sold. Wonderful lady's going to move in a few weeks, and so kind of life goes on. However, it came about, Mr. and Mrs. Charles want to put a generator, a backup generator on the property as well. I believe maybe when we went to seek or talk to the city about that, it was determined that this was potentially a major, kind of change to the site plan, and it should come before planning commission. No secret, as kind of a developer and builder, and I think I speak for the owner, we were kind of thinking it was a minor change and perhaps could be done administratively. But as we've come to learn, it sounds like maybe there's been more noise about noise in the city, so maybe we're a little more sensitive to that than we were in the past. Nonetheless, we're here. We'd like to respectfully ask for approval for these units in these locations, air conditioning condensers and a generator. I believe, I hope anyway, but the neighbors surrounding, on this site was most directly affected by the units, I believe, have offered their letters in support of the location there. And I guess I'd also note that, okay, thank you. I'd also note that some of you didn't go through this kind of process, but what we ended up with, in large part because the city ultimately saw the project as a favorable one, and found ways to help us achieve our goals. We actually ended up with not one but two, but three different homeowners associations on that site. So our something we'd like to note is that we believe even if there were some kind of problem in the future, that perhaps these homeowners associations would be able to address it before it got to other neighbors or before it got to the city. So I guess that's the overview. If you have any questions or like specifics again related to the mechanicals itself, happy to answer. Thank you.
Yeah, and I would like to speak a little bit too, just to give you guys a little bit more of background and history. Like Rob said, my name is Nick Liebler, architect of record for actually all of the projects on the site there. And responsible for kind of providing the development plan with Rob when this got approved originally. Part of kind of how we get here today and why things weren't on the site plan necessarily the first time, when this went through tentative approval, the two single-family dwellings on Bay Street were just placeholders at that point in time. They were not designed in their entirety, and we didn't have owners for either of those. So it was always under an understanding that things were going to change, and those type of things would come back to planning review if they were major changes. At the time, not having a design for a home, it's hard to know what a mechanical system looks like, whatever the owner's wishes are. Some require boilers, some require geothermal heat pumps, some require condensing units. It just depends on the load and the design of the system. So some of that information is a little bit unknown. We're the type of people as a company, we try to ask for permission ahead of time rather than figure this later. So that's why we're trying to stem this off ahead of time. It's something that a property like this, an investment like this, the owners are requesting a generator. You said you've got the same generator on your property, so you understand the need for power outages happen in northern Michigan. It's just the nature of where we are. The city's position when we started going through this before, there are a lot of questions of why do the owners need a generator? We don't have any power outages in the city. And if that's the case and that's the logic we're moving forward with, then this thing will never be running anyway. So we kind of use that as a background for it. If the power never goes out, the generator's never on, other than it's just a test cycle that it goes through once a week. In your packet that you guys got as part of the original application is the data for the generator itself. I think the air conditioners are probably less of a concern, but again, none of those were on the original submittal, so we're asking for everything. It's kind of hard to understand because that runs at 55 decibels, and if you're not familiar with decibel ratings, that's the average reading for a refrigerator in your house at that time. I got a photo in there. We pulled a picture of the trash that came every week for 10 minutes, parks outside our office, twice the distance as far away as this is, around 16 times the volume of this generator. So, the concern of where this is to neighbors, trash is going to come, it's going to pick up the dumpster once a week. That's going to be more intrusive than this generator running its test cycle, which we get to pick the date and time when it happens. It's what we would consider a minor change. I understand the language of the original development requires us to be here today. Thank all of them for your time. I was a member of the zoning board of the county, so I understand the movement of sitting on boards and hearing these type of things. But, it's, if you look in the packet I gave you too, we took some photographs. There was concern of what this might look like from the neighbors on the upper 2 level of condos, both of which Rob is the owner for still at this point in time, so without any objections from him. There's a photograph from every balcony, and then there's a rendering of what it looks like with a red square that shows where the generator is going, and then a rendering that shows what that looks like. There will be a privacy fence and landscape screening that takes place in both of those, all of which help mitigate the noise. Without a full lesson in acoustics, anything that we put between those noise sources will reduce that volume as well. So if you've got any questions as we get through it, we tried to provide, and I apologize for all the documentation that you got. It was our understanding that we had to reapply for the entire process and development. So it's the full packet really that came through in duplicate. And really, all we're asking for is kind of this portion of the project.
And Nick, just to clarify, the trash receptacle for people who weren't here when this was initially approved, it's on the west boundary. So the trash would come in, the example of the trash, the dump truck would be backing in between these two residents and then mixed use buildings to the north.
Let's go to the next slide.
In the parking lot.
Yeah, if you back up one slide.
Just to get everybody where that.
And part of, to kind of go through the logic of why we placed these where we were, if you were to think of this property as a whole, these generators and air conditioners sitting in the center of that parcel, so the least impactful to anybody around other than the neighbors condo association themselves. But yeah, you can see right at the top of the page there at the end of the parking row, that's where the dumpster location is. So again, you've got a trash truck that's going to be 16 times louder than this generator running right on line. There were no objections to that at the time of approval. We did originally have an area located directly between the two garages of a single family that said utility meter area. That was what was asked for in the planning commission application, that we knew where utility meters go, not specifically all utilities at the time. So what we've denoted is an area that's a utility area. The same goes for the area next to the trash receptacle. I can't tell you what electrical generators are going to look like for transformers 5 years down the road, and if this constitutes a major change, anytime we change utilities, we're going to have to be back here and Rob and all the owners at the expense of coming back here on the planning commission meeting to approve specific pieces of equipment. To my knowledge, there haven't been any complaints about the air conditioning unit at 2 and 5. 275, I'm sorry. There is no equipment in place at 285 yet, so no ability for a complaint to have come through on that yet. Again, we're seeking for preemptive approval of this.
Anyone have any questions for Rob or Nick?
Just out of curiosity, how long is the test cycle?
5 minutes. And we can set the day and the time of that. So there's been discussion of how loud is the siren when it goes off, to let you know it's not much time in the city. Truck traffic just on a major street like M119 is roughly 70 decibels. So again, that's almost 2.5 times louder than that. So it really is severe. Heat blowers are exponentially louder than what this is going to be, and those happen all day long through the city of restraints. So, but yeah, it is 5 minutes one day.
And Rob, is Rimmer the new owner of 275?
That's correct.
And her conditioner is installed and running.
I just want to get the call from Jack Deacon right now, so.
Just to touch on this a little bit. So one of the reasons that it's back here, I, as the zoning administrator, don't have approval to allow a structure to be placed within a setback. And our zoning code does look at AC units as structures. You guys, as the planning commission, through the plan development overlay process, have some ability to bend that rule a tad to accommodate things, assuming that they work within the rules and regulations that you put in place for things. So that's the reason one of the reasons that it's here, as opposed to me doing it administratively.
And Jeff, just for the history of it, I think some things that we're talking about, understanding these designs had to be done in order to gain approval, and if things such as window openings and colors were changed, that wasn't necessarily things that were contemplated, but because this is in a potentially what would be considered a setback area, that's why it's here. So.
Yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions for the applicant?
And there was some clarification, sorry, to interrupt, about what that setback is, because technically the setbacks for the entire parcel, and obviously we meet those requirements, it's those internal setbacks that were subdivided out as part of the condo plat, that essentially the building perimeter became the setback for Mr. Charles's particular lot itself.
The building key.
It's the building, yeah, so it's a condo development and what that building envelope looks like. We do meet all of the requirements of a perimeter setback.
So these, just to help, so they're really, because they're site condominiums or condominium units, they're really not two lots of record for the 275 and 285. So you don't have a side yard setback that's a normal circumstance. It's sort of unusual because they're site condominiums as opposed to a meets and bounds description, I guess.
Right.
Just to say that, because the whole parcel is still one unit description, correct? That was the Maine Bay Association, what it's called, is the master plan. or the master-
Well,
Sorry, master plan.
Yeah. For assessment purposes, they do each have their separate legal descriptions as unit of the whatnot. For zoning purposes, we're still looking at this whole thing as one site.
One side, yeah. And Larry, did you want to go through, it would be helpful for everybody to have Larry go through this memo.
Yes.
It's really quite simple, because when I. The question, oh, okay.
We have,
Oh.
looks like Al joined. the-
Yeah, I got a hold of Al and he joined for Rocky's,
Great,
so just like.
Good.
thank you. Thank you, Al.
Basically, Mr. Mossberg provided a good overview of this project when it happened back in 2017. It was a project that was a little controversial. It asked for a lot of bending of the rules, and the city was very accommodating for a lot of the elements that are around this piece of property as you start to see it develop today. We've heard public comment about that over time at a meeting several months ago. And so it was a large compromise, if you will, of the traditional rules and regulations, what we have out there today, which I think everybody, once you get rid of the porta potties and the dumpsters and everything else construction wise, I think it's going to be a wonderful piece. As Mr. Mossberg indicated, no one really anticipated the placement during the overview of this, the planning of this project, to the details of a generator or air conditioning units.
This is Pete Wallen. Can I comment on this?
In a few moments, Pete, we'd love to hear your comments. Let us get to the public input portion, if you would, please. Thank you. And so basically what this comes down to is they're going to have either 2 or 3 air conditioning units between these two buildings. I see in the plan that was submitted this evening, there's one for Mrs. Rimmer's piece and one for Mr. Charles' piece. And the one that I got just the other day, there were 2 for Mr. Charles' place and 1 for Mrs. Rimmer's place. So once we need to clarify what we're considering for approval. And there's also a generator to be at the north end of Mr. Charles' garage unit there. Just north of that, there's going to be a property line fence that I'm not sure who's responsible for that, probably Mr. Mossberg for the construction of that. There is about a 10-foot wide landscape area that's going to be at the parking lot level for the parking lot for the mixed-use buildings adjacent to Main Street. In that area, that 10-foot area is really potentially a part of the parking lot if there's a need for additional parking. So that landscape area could disappear sometime in the future as one of the provisions of the approval of this project. We allowed it to go as green space initially, but if there's a need for additional parking for the retail or for the residential spaces on the Main Street building, then that landscape area would come out and the parking area would be expanded to add those additional 4 parking spaces there. So we have to look at this with the potential that that green space just south of the parking lot could potentially not be there. My only concern with these units is that if they run simultaneously, okay, it could get a little noisy because these 2 residential units, the garage units, are only 10 feet apart. And so where's the sound going to go? Are air conditioning units that loud? No, they're not that loud. Okay, is a generator loud? It's noisier than an air conditioning unit. There's no doubt about it. I have a neighbor with one, and I can always tell when he's in his cycle mode because I can hear it, and it's on the other side of his house, which is about 200 feet from where I live. But I can still hear his generator running. Okay, it's just the nature of the beast. The ambient noise level where I live is about 45 or 50. Okay, and so when he fires up his generator, or when it automatically goes on, it gets a little noisy. Given the public input that we had on this project initially, there was some strong concerns presented by some of the neighbors in the area. I had no idea what their comments were this evening. I've recommended to you, we need to really look at trying to figure out how to suppress this noise to the greatest extent possible. There's got to be some good techniques out there to do that. And also we need to take consideration to public input that we're going to receive. The letters that I saw this evening were people that are within the complex itself and one neighbor that said we have no problems. That's a very positive sign. So that's something we have to take into consideration. So with that, I think we had Mr. Wallen there that wanted to provide some input to us. So Mr. Bowman, I'll put it back to you.
And I guess we would, I don't think there's anyone here in the audience to speak to this. If there are Mr. Wallen or anyone else online who would want to comment on this, the idea of the generator and the 2 air conditioning units, 3 actually.
Oh, thanks, Andy. And I tell you what, it's really hard to hear you people on this Zoom meeting, but I'm a property owner at 307 East Bay Street, and I'm also representing the Polemarks. And first of all, that generator is probably going to be running on natural gas. Is that correct?
Yes.
That is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you talked about eliminating the green space and stuff like that. The first thing I can see is somebody backing into that and knocking it over. So that's going to be a very serious fire hazard. And that generator runs once a week to cycle. I have my place out behind my house that people stay in, and it's not air conditioned. They have to have their windows open. It's going to be a nuisance. My suggestion is put it between the buildings. You're going to allow the air conditioners, put it between the buildings, and I can live with it. But I think it's a very poor spot to put it. And I'm in disagreement with where it's going to go, and so are the Omars.
Thank you, Pete. Any other comments from the public that are not here at the meeting?
Let me check Zoom real quick, or just to see. Does not look like we have any YouTube comments. So.
Any questions for Larry or the applicant from members of the planning commission? Comments, just thoughts on your own?
I guess I would take up on Mr. Long's comment. Is there a possibility to locate the generator between the buildings?
It is certainly possible. We out of respect for the neighbor on the 275 had asked to put it on this side, one, just to try to provide some more soundproofing between that and their building as well. I guess to address a couple of the comments, there are 2 AC condenser units for 285 and just 1 for 275. Part of the reason why we left that zone on that original site plan is because should something happen and technology changes and 275 all of a sudden needs 2, I don't want to have to come back here and try to provide approval for 2 AC condenser, but it is possible, it was a noise consideration for that. Obviously, the more space we can put between them and just the building. To address Mr. Wallen's comments, there is going to be a privacy fence that will screen this from the parking lot, so yes, someone could run into it, but they would have to drive through a fence first to get there. So from a safety concern, it's not something that we consider a real nuisance at that point.
So you are envisioning a fence around the generator?
It's a fence that actually divides the entire residential parcels from the commercial property.
It's that basically that hash line, you know.
Yes, I see to the north.
And you can see it in your packet of the renderings that I sent you tonight. I didn't have in front of me today. There's a privacy fence that runs the full length. And that was done to try to help provide some privacy between the commercial units and the residential.
Is that a solid fence or is it?
Solid fence. Or again, trying to mitigate some of those noise, although the trees may come out, most of your noise is being blocked by the solid fence itself. That is going to do a great deal. It's the same reason they put up tall fences along the sides of freeways in people's backyards. That barrier becomes a real obstruction for the sound waves. I should point out too, it was highlighted in your packet, the generator that Charles are looking to install is what's called a quiet test model. So while there are generators that run very loudly, this is a specific model that's designed to run its test modes below that decibel threshold. It's not your standard generator. We have some in our office in Petoskey that are quite loud as well. At 55 decibels during its test mode, so this is hardly noticeable at the ambient downtown.
I think you had 72 in your packet, so it's 55 in the testimony.
Okay.
It's the, and you can set the time, an hours goes off Wednesday at 3:30.
Yeah.
5 minutes. I would suggest noon, any day of the week. Because the whistle's probably going to round out. I don't know how long the whistle goes. It doesn't go for 5 minutes, but at least if the whistle started up, you can time them that. Well, it's funny. I know exactly what when ours is. If it doesn't go, you start to think, oh, it's too expensive. The air conditioning units. My personal feeling is that's something that we expected in a house like this. It's a little unusual for us to have generator downtown just because there are very, very few outages in the city, unlike where I live, where if you want to come home at night and know if the power's out, just roll the window down and you can hear the, know if they're on or not. Other thoughts anybody else has regarding the placement or potentially moving the generator? I know sometimes where a panel is, that becomes a little more of an issue, but there's a request in the neighborhood with that. We can't make requests of you to do that. That's something you'd have to decide on your own. Anybody else have any other thoughts on this unit or generator?
Actually, I was going to make a comment, if that's okay.
Yeah.
I dealt with a similar situation for the Navy. We designed a generator for them. Natural gas is definitely quieter than the diesel, much safer. If you do hit a gas line, you have to have the proper air mixture for it to ignite, which is between 4 and 14%. Natural gas will dissipate, it's lighter than air. So it dissipates up. I don't think as a fireman and policeman I've ever seen one catch on fire. But they also make polymer for the inside of the generators, which we outfitted one of the generators at the Navy, and it does quiet it down by half. So there are panels that go inside of those generators that will drop the noise level considerably.
There's some advantage to us having to wait.
And I'm only saying it, I'm an OSHA instructor and I deal with the noise levels all the time, so it's not like I'm pulling information.
No, that's very helpful, because we're obviously, this is an education for us over here, so.
Andrew, could I have?
Yes, absolutely.
Obviously, I'm JT Charles, owner of the property that Rob and all know. We refer to it as our forever and dream home. And in June 18th of 2019, we came to an agreement on my wife's birthday. Purchased the lot for her birthday. We had hoped in June of 19, we originally had the discussions that we would be raising a cocktail glass to celebrate my birthday today on a rooftop. Unfortunately, that's not the case. The last place that I thought I would be on my birthday would be here talking about air conditioning units for a home. I thought that when our home went through the county, went through the city and was approved, that it was approved to have air conditioning. So trust, I was a little bit taken aback when I'm being advised that the air conditioners are now in question. We've made a significant investment in this property. We've made a significant investment to fill the hole that I've heard about for the 26 years that my in-laws have been up here. I've been coming up here for over 40 years. And all I've heard about is after it was finally torn down was the hole. We don't want the Petoskey hole. I was the first one to step up the plate to fill the hole. Today, we're hearing about this change. We still don't understand what changed. What changed to our building plans that were approved by the county and the city? Haven't got an answer. We asked for a definition of what constitutes a minor change and a major change. We haven't got an answer. So I stand here today saying what brought us, or what brings us here today? A house with air conditioning, a house that has a generator. I hope my parents do not need medical support. I hope my in-laws don't need it. But I know my in-laws on Lower Shore Drive don't have a generator. And right next door, the gentleman does. And I can count, not with both hands, not with my toes, all the times the power goes out. And I've stayed there without power on days. I've thrown meat out. I've emptied the refrigerator. I don't want to go through that. So I thank you for your time this evening. I don't understand why we're here. I don't understand what's changed and how air conditioning, even though it wasn't on the original site plan, Nick has plenty of years of architecture under his belt, as does Nick White, his partner. I asked them specifically, how many homes have you submitted air conditioning units on a plan? They haven't. They pointed out where the electric utilities come into the site. So I ask you for your consideration. If you go home this evening and have your air conditioning run, one day go home to ours and have your air conditioning run too. Thank you.
Thank you. And I guess my own thoughts on this, I mean, air conditioning is, I wouldn't have thought as many times as we all stared at this and I was on the commission when it went through. I didn't contemplate it at the time. The generator is a slightly different issue, but I think it's a very common thing in houses at this point. We look at, not that we're having issues that Texas have, we have heat in our houses, but they are certainly more common than they used to be. So I don't know if that's something that the code is silent on or just doesn't reference, or if they all have to be in setbacks, but that's really the issue with whatever.
Air conditioning units?
Or generators.
Yeah, we require all appliances or mechanical equipment that is tied to a building to meet the setbacks of that building. We consider it part of the structure. And just to further add, these items like this that have consistent noise, when we do get noise complaints, 90% of the time that's what it's for. Because they typically are next to the side of a home, which is close to a property line. And when you have another building that's nearby, that's typically what the complaint is about, is their air conditioner kicks on, it's on all day, we have the noise level from that. It seems like the ones that they have are meeting our decibel level requirements. However, they are much closer to other structures than what we normally see in other residential districts.
And I guess being a condominium, that's a good point to make about being a condominium. And there are 3 associations here, two affecting 275 and 285, that being Maine to Bay and the L3, I think it's called, are the 2 homes. So I imagine, like most condominium associations, they have bylaws that would basically preclude either neighbor from being a nuisance to the other. So there's actually 2 extra layers other than that they might get to before they came to the city. So that is something that's unusual. The houses are closer together, but they actually have 3 layers of regulation. Their own 2 associations, and then they have the city ultimately, if somebody would complain about in the noise, the decibel level for noise on site on your own property in the city is at 70.
70.
So I mean, they're well below that, and it seems like the 2 structures offer a lot of protection off of the site for noise, that essentially the noise can be contained between those 2 buildings for all intents and purposes. So there really shouldn't be much noise beyond. I know we have a massive generator at Hillside. But it's also a Generac. I don't think it's nice and fancy like this one. I never hear it when it cycles on. And it sits right outside our office, but,
To give you guys just an understanding of acoustics and how they work too, because it's a little misleading, the difference of 10 decibels is essentially a doubling. So if you were to go from 50 to 60, that's not just a 20% increase, that's a full doubling of noise too. So when you start talking about what that threshold is from 55 to 70, you know, we're talking about 2.5 times louder than what this thing is going to be done.
It would be, I assume it's not something where if Larry made a good point, if these are all running at one time, they don't stack on top of each other. It's the loudest thing controls. So whatever the loudest piece of equipment is, the others are muffled by that. I don't know.
There is a bit of an additive effect to
There
it.
is.
If you've got a 55 decibel thing going and another 55, it's not 110. It is a slight increase to it.
Just because two sources.
Yeah.
My feeling is, I think,
he's here.
the owners are
Thank you.
taking reasonable
Thank you.
precautions here and everything they can to mitigate the effect on everybody else. The neighbors are lined up in support. Mr. Charles supports Ms. Rimmer's equipment between the building and vice versa. And I believe with privacy fence in front of the generator, less of a hazard for someone backing into it. And I think every reasonable precaution has been taken, and I can support it.
Any other comments?
Was there this discussion on the neighbor air conditioner?
No, I think that went in 2 summers ago when the house was probably reached ski low and was recently sold to Mrs. River. I think it may have been something that was went in and wasn't noticed.
We were unaware of that. So this is the discussion for all of the mechanical equipment at both of these sites.
Well, and it seems, as Mr. Charles stated, that air conditioning is just almost an absolute now. And that we were talking too long about it. That's my opinion.
Do we have a motion to make a decision?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the applicant's request.
Second.
Any further discussion amongst the members?
I would assume that would be based upon the brief analysis that Mr. Mulder provided in his little dissertation prior to making his motion. Would that be a good foundation for the support of that, or for the making of that
I don't think
motion?
I'm adding anything to the plan. I'm not adding any conditions.
No. It was just a findings of fact that you stated.
Reference
Yes.
to neighbors.
Great, yeah, if you get that, Jeff, sure.
Yeah.
And that motion.
So that was a motion by Bill, a second by Beth.
Mhm.
All right. We will do a roll call on this because I see we have Al Dyka online with us now as well. Let's start with Andrew Bowman,
Yes.
Bill Mulder,
Yes.
Emily Dubé,
yes.
Mary Catherine Hanna,
Yes.
Beth Rahali.
Yes.
Al, are you there? Can you hear me?
I'm here, and I'm here.
Okay. All right. That is 5 votes against 1 and motion passes.
Thank you guys for your time tonight.
Okay. The reason that you had to come, in direct answer to Mr. Charles' comment, is we don't have in our ordinance, nor was it in the development agreement between the city and the developer, any mechanism for making an adjustment to the plan. So this issue came forward, we searched high and low. Where's a minor, where's a major change? Those are not terminologies that we have in our zoning code for a plan development, as this was. And I've been here for 31 years, and I think this is the second plan development we've ever dealt with. Okay, so it's not something that gets used a lot here in the city. And with this minor or major change, there's no mechanism for it. But the zoning code will be, after we complete the master plan, is into review, and this is another item that goes on that list for, if you will, modernizing the rules and regulations in the city. So that's why you're here, Mr. Charles. I apologize. Happy birthday to you. I hope you have a good evening because you had a good positive answer tonight.
Result of these good people, most certainly.
That's right, very good.
Define minor and major change in the, after we do the master plan, hopefully your next birthday won't be spent.
Just call it the Charles word.
Yes, the Charles.
Yes.
I would prefer my name not be.
You're associated
We all
with
feel
it.
the same way. We do have now, everything's, computer falls asleep now. It's like, I'm very young and I felt comfort. We're gonna move to the, 117 West Main, special land use. We don't need to take any further action on the Charles amendment.
No, they're fine. I was just gonna say that this is another issue. The first one we started with. Very
Thank you,
good.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate all your.
Bye.
Thank you both for your time.
Sure, no problem.
Have a nice day. Take care.
Thank you.
So now, moving to the original first item on the agenda will be a public hearing for the special land use at 117 West Main. This is a specialty restaurant use application. I'm always a little confused on how the sequencing this goes. I think we get a brief description of what's being requested and then open the public hearing, or prefer to, that way people know what they're commenting for us.
Right.
So we just have a brief, either from the applicant or from staff, a brief description of what's being requested, and then we'll.
Go ahead, Rocky.
Let's start with a motion to open the public hearing.
So is this, that's
You
why I
want
was
to go
asking,
first,
yeah.
or we get a brief description?
Is this part of the public hearing, is the presentation, or?
Yes.
Presentation, okay. So we would need a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved. Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And Al? Aye. Thank you. Okay.
Anybody want any blueprints, or you got them on your screen?
We have it.
You got them? Okay. So,
I still look at it on the site.
Yep, I'm gonna modify that right here in just a second. I apologize for that. So I'll go right to the site plan page here.
good to go? I think you were on the first one, right? I remember.
Yes.
Okay.
I actually lived upstairs for a while, building.
I remember. Parties, yes. we remember that. I wasn't there. I missed it. So anyhow, we came in a couple years back. We live in the community. We're in Harvest Springs, and we love it up here. But 2 years ago, we decided to buy the space that came up for use, for sale. And we opened up the ice cream shop, and it's been really a great success. And we're opening earlier in the year and later to serve the community that is. We run a very clean facility. We've had 3 inspections so far and 0 violations, 0 recommendations. So we really take care of the public. We try to offer good service as well. But what we decided to do when the other location came up for sale, we thought, what can we do? What would be needed in the city? And really, a soup and deli and panini shop was one of the first things that came to our mind, that it's simple to do. You don't have to have a full-blown kitchen and, a lot of staff and a lot of seating. So we decided to go ahead and pursue that. We purchased the location. We got the permits for the building, kind of jumped the gun because of the timeline. Summer is right here and you got to open up quick. And I looked at the blueprints and everything. I talked to Marty over at the building department, also spoke to Michelle at the health department. We're in compliance with everybody. And since we already have an established kitchen in Unit 1 at 117 Main Street, literally, we're just moving the cabinets, the ice cream cabinets, over to the other space. And it's less work, and that's going to be the ice cream shop. And the current ice cream shop will become the soup and deli shop. In the plans, I don't know if you have it up here.
On the screen.
This was built by the cottage company. Basically, they designed these walls on the bottom and upstairs to be fully open, so it's got a beam already and posts. So it even tells you on the blueprints that you can take this wall down and expand your space. So we don't need any of that, we're good, permits are pulled, but that's the idea behind it. We're gonna offer at least 20 seats, 16 to 20 seats in Unit 2, and at least 8 seats in Unit 1, with an opening between them. So that's gonna really serve the community pretty well, especially in cold weather or when it's raining, it's nice and cool in there in the summer. And it's gonna offer, I don't think anybody that has a sweet shop really has any seating inside. So we're probably one of the only ones. The building both of them are paid in full, so it's not like if you approve us, we might disappear next year. We're here to stay. And as a matter of fact, if the city can resolve some of the parking issues, we'll be willing to invest in more property in the city and do something more in downtown. Parking is kind of one of our sore subjects here. So I addressed the items that we need to address in order to get compliance and approval. We're providing 4 tables in Unit 2 and up to 16 to 20 in Unit, So 4 tables in Unit 1, 4 tables in Unit 2 and up to 16 seats, and Unit 1 will have 2 tables and 8 chairs. Unit 2 is approximately 576 square feet, Unit 1 is 595, and those are the allowable footprints for the code. I did check the code on that, it does meet the requirements. All food that is served at our location will be for immediate consumption, and with the seating, we're encouraging customers to also stay in and eat. So it's not like a fast food service thing. We addressed the cashier. Currently, we have the cashier in front, just like it requires, and we're gonna add another one to the other location in front as well, because our lines do go around the block at times, which we're really surprised. We are gonna probably put in for another permit with the city regarding outside seating. That's in the process. My wife has already went through the classes for food safety, and so did Julia. They're all good on that. And I did mention it that we're happy that we haven't received any violations at all from the health department. Trash at our location, which is an issue at times. So what we came up with, we just remove it every night, and in the morning it goes to the landfill in the county. We also have additional parking with these 2 units. So we have, for our workers, we have 4 parking spots up on 3rd Street. That's a property that was, I think it's still owned by the cottage company, but we own those 4 parking spots. So we tried to get our workers to park up there and keep the streets open for our customers as much as possible. So I'm hoping this meets the requirements, and we're very eager to open up this soup and deli shop. My wife likes to serve the best ice cream, top of the line, and our soup and ice cream shop and salads, they're all going to be and healthy stuff. So I think it's really needed in the community. As far as the hours, we're in compliance also with the city. As far as the hours, we open from normally 10 to 10. And the soup and sandwich shop, we're looking at it, that we would like to keep it open all year long if possible. We're going to really, I think the community needs it. Another thing that came up to me and was mentioned by a lot of people, can we have lunch for under $10? And it's difficult in Harbor to do that. So we are creating what is called the Harbor Worker Special. So you're guaranteed to come in, you can get a sandwich, 4 ounces of meat, not smaller, or it doesn't decrease because it's summertime, it's gonna be the same, with everything you want on it, with pop, chips for under $10, or you can do a sandwich with soup for under $10. So we definitely want to accommodate the people that work in the city, city workers, or people who just don't want to spend $50 on lunch. And I think this would really be a good thing for the community and for us as well. Any questions for me?
We'll do the public comment analysis from the public hearing. Any None of the empty chairs are going to speak. So anyone on Zoom or YouTube, I'll remember by the end of this which two channels are on.
Let's see if I can find, somehow my thing changed and I lost the chat bar.
Yeah.
No, Al is still here. Let's see if we have any.
Thank you, Al.
Okay, it sounds like it's difficult for people to hear, so if we can make sure to speak up as much as we can. Doesn't look like we have any comments.
With no public comment, will we have a motion to close the public hearing, where we can discuss this as a planning commission?
I move that we close the public hearing.
So race is on. We have support. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Comments, questions for the applicant from the planning commission?
No, it's very thorough. I think.
Yeah, I agree, thorough, and it sounds, it's a good, wonderful addition.
Thank you, thank you.
It says here there will be no cooking on the premises. How do you do that?
Well, there is no full-blown kitchen, so when you get your sandwiches, you can get them with the meats already cut up, or you can cut them up there, so you're not really cooking anything. The only thing for a panini that you're doing is lowering the press.
Smashing it. Okay.
That's pretty much it. The soups, again, thanks to my wife, I think she picked the menu that she likes. I'm like, what about everybody? So again, it's all organic soups, and it all comes pretty much pre-made. We do add certain things to them, and you just heat them up, and that's it.
Oh,
And the way we found out, it's actually better and safer because of when you get it mixed like that, it's under a controlled environment and a clean setting compared to somebody trying to make it in their home and bring it in or trying to make it there. So we went through all that with Cisco, and that's our supplier, and we feel like this is the safest way to take that product and put it out there. So there will be really hardly any cooking at all. We might bake some cookies once in a while or something like that, but yeah, we don't have fryers. We're not interested in that. That emits a lot of smells and different things, so we don't really need that. We have good neighbors upstairs, the Bissell family. Initially, they objected because of a renter that was there, but we haven't had any issues at all. We get along super well, and as a matter of fact, Kathy's mom was doing Bible studies in there when everything was going crazy. We used the ice cream shop for something different during the winter, so Bible studies went pretty well. Maybe that's how we got our blessings. I don't know. It helps, right?
Yes.
But we love the community. I've been a cop all over, and this is one special place. Emmett County is really great, and I want to do everything I can to invest in the city, to invest in the county, mostly the city if I can, and just be part of this community.
Larry's memo, I think, speaks for itself. It was.
Yeah, I had some suggestions for a motion in there that were positive. It was kind of interesting when I reviewed the file on this. I saw all those old letters from a few years ago, Rocky,
Right.
that people were complaining, well, we're not sure what's going to go on here. And I was kind of apprehensive as to what was going to go on this evening, but the absence of people and a support letter indicate that he did exactly what he was going to do when he stated so, a few years ago. And it's been very successful, and it's the type of people we'd like to see in the city.
We just painted the building. Upstairs, they painted it. We painted downstairs. We replaced any rotted wood. We cleaned it up.
Good.
Chief sees me all the time. We power wash the sidewalks. We don't leave the ice cream sticking there for the next 10 months. But we really, like I said, pride in our business and the community. And if there's anything we can do extra, we would love to do it. I might be volunteering. Jeff kind of talked me into it last time, volunteer for some of these groups and try to be more involved. And if I can find the time, I definitely would like to do it.
You're not adding time to your schedule with this approval. So.
Are you ready for a motion?
I
would move that we approve the special land use for the property located at 117 West Main Street, based on the fact that the standards for the specialty restaurant have been met, the site plan review standards have been met, and the special use standards have been met.
You have support.
Yes, I support that for the second time.
Would you, no further discussion, would you call the roll?
Let's do that. Beth Rahali,
Yes.
Mary Catherine Hanna,
Yes.
Emily Dubé,
Yes.
Bill Mulder,
Yes.
Andrew Bowman,
Yes.
and Al Dyka?
Yeah.
Yes. Motion passes.
Thank you very much for doing this today.
Oh.
Pressure is off.
That's good.
Thank you. All right. Thank you for your patience.
Very much.
Okay, thank you, Al.
Thank you, Al.
So we're planning on doing a grand opening with the DDA. We'll send out invites and it'll be free food for everybody. Try it out.
Well, if you
Hopefully it
take
works
the
out.
tea off the menu, all these approvals go away.
Will not.
It comes from the 12-year-old that I live with.
Does she need a job? Send her.
Yeah, it's the working on that.
Send, please. We're looking for certain people. We don't hire just about anybody. They got to smile, be nice to the customers.
Yes.
So, but thank you again.
Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Rocky.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
Talk
Jeff.
to you
Good
later.
job.
Yeah.
Let's see. Member comments.
I do have a comment and an idea, and I want to follow up on our discussion at the last master plan meeting about next steps that we could be taking while Jeff and Larry were preparing the draft of the document. And the thought was that we could maybe have a working group, subcommittee that would put together a recommendation for how we can get some community input on some of the macro issues that we have, probably mostly housing. And I have an idea that with 3 or 4 interested people in our group, in the next 2 weeks, we could put together a specific proposal about how a meeting would be structured, what we hope to accomplish, what the rules would be, the frequency, all the details about what we could put together. So I'd like to convene that, and I would love to be part of it. And if this group thinks that it's worth pursuing, then maybe we could save some time and get something specific for us to react to next meeting.
That's, I think it's a great idea. My only question would be advice from staff, how we do this appropriately as far as the open meetings. If we had if we call it a work group or a subcommittee, 2 to 3 members, or I guess 3 to 4 members, is that doable?
Well, to have a,
And all, we're not making a decision, we're just trying to.
not that we're trying to circumvent the open meetings. I know that's not Bill's intent at all with what he's saying. But if we have less than a quorum of the planning commission together, which would be 4 people maximum, okay, that doesn't constitute a quorum. Thus, if those 4 people got together as a study group to try to form a strategy for accomplishing additional public input, there's nothing wrong with that. That is not subject to the Open Meetings Act. Okay, when you get a 5th person in there, that's a quorum, and then it has to be, put on the bulletin board and open for anybody to participate in. So.
And I would be willing to be on the work group to the extent that people want me there.
I would love to do that.
So, and
Okay.
Well, that's your 4, so.
to be honest, we kind of wanted to get you, but I know you're busy too, so.
I'm happy to participate and I would love to, but I do not want to get anyone in trouble with the open.
And maybe
Meetings
this
Act,
is really
so-
more a process of how you get, with your experience and expertise. Probably.
And I'm thinking with your schedule, if we could advance things over the next 2 weeks, then we could get your input specifically.
And then is there a time, I get to go out of town for Memorial Day weekend for my birthday, I was told. So other than that.
Yeah, I think we better move fast.
Yeah.
So-
Come back before 2 weeks, we better do something next week.
Monday, Tuesday next week. Tuesday mornings aren't great for me. Maybe so we don't take everybody's time tonight.
We can start an email.
4
I
of
can
us
send
just
something out.
communicating on Monday.
Great.
And I did let Jeff know, but I did confirm with Yarrow that she can attend the June 3rd meeting. So she and I are having a quick call tomorrow just to put together what materials she's gonna bring, and then I'll get those to Jeff and pass those.
So we'll communicate on
Yes.
this weekend or.
Yep.
Yeah.
Those guys.
And Bill, I'll join you guys for your committee because I think it would be a good idea to figure out a plan of action of, like you said, how we're going to get some public input and what type of public input
Great.
and I'll try and work with you guys on that to help.
Fortunately, we're probably
coordinate in
a
some
lot
way.
better position to get public input than we were when that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
and this is prime time
Yep.
right now
Oh,
over
yeah.
the summer.
Well, I mean, as far as the rules.
Well, yes.
The actual
True.
physical, but you're right, we don't want to do this, after the season.
And I think there are a couple of buckets, like housing is definitely one, but there are a couple others.
We had
Bill's idea was once we had this process in place, then we just plug in the subject.
Yeah.
I think we had 3 topics at the last planning commission meeting we talked about. I don't remember them offhand, but I know I made sure to include them in the minutes. And I think coupled with that, it kind of ties in with kind of our land use map and taking a look at that map and seeing where things might work. So I'll send out an email tomorrow to schedule or to get with Beth and Emily and Andrew and Bill to figure out a time that works for you guys to get together. Maybe we can have like donuts and coffee or something here or whatnot. So
I only have one conflict next week. It's Wednesday afternoon.
okay.
I thought you were going to request a special coffee type.
That's what I.
Oh.
Oh yeah,
Or a special donut
Black,
type.
black.
I want glazed donuts.
just playing.
And
yeah.
glazed donuts, I really like.
All right.
Great. Any other member comments or comments from Larry or Jeff?
Do we have any comments from the public? Oh, Larry and Jeff do have a comment.
Okay.
So if you remember a couple of months ago,
Larry,
we
did
were-
comment was-
we were discussing political signs and flags.
Yep.
We came up with some ideas. Larry had a memo with some great ideas. We sent that to Jim Raymer to draft up a resolution. Jim has been looking at that. He looked at a lot of other communities. He looked at a lot of court cases that have happened. He still has a pretty good concern regarding that content neutrality topic. That even his concern is even, referring to a sign as a political sign, you have to look at the content of the sign to make that determination of what it is. And what he's seen that some other communities are doing, a good example is Petoskey. In their review, they're changing their code right now. They're not referring to whether a sign is a political sign or a realtor sign or whatnot. They're just saying temporary signs, and that all temporary signs must meet these regulations. So his thought was that we do something a little bit more in line with that. We have one of 2 choices at this point. We could we could put it back on the agenda and we could come up with something right now and prepare a resolution to make a change to the code. My thought is that anything that we would do that would be, that level of content neutrality would start to conflict with other issues that we have in our zoning code regarding other signage, because we do still specify certain types of signs like realtor signs, garage sale signs and whatnot. And I think we're at the point where if we're going to do that, we need to look at all of our signage as one lump sum.
Temporary.
Right. And I think that we're getting to the point, I think with the master plan, we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, that we're going to get there within a reasonable time frame. That I think that if we just make sure to plan that one of the first things we look at when we start looking at the zoning code is signage, that we can still come up with a resolution and address signage. I think Jim Raymer's thought was if we're talking about political signs and we want to have something in place, the idea would be to have it in place before I think the next major election is 2022. So that would be kind of our goal. And if that works for you, then that's what we can do. If anybody has a thought one way or the other.
Jeff, as the zoning administrator, is going to be virtually attending a seminar on this very topic Monday evening.
Come up elsewhere, you mean?
Well, and some of this is stemming from, there have been some state Supreme Court cases touching on the idea of content neutrality. And there was I guess one somewhat recently. And so the MSU extension is holding a couple of these virtual Zoom meetings to discuss, what the ramifications of that with zoning and what you can do. So,
Good update.
Yeah. And I'll bring that information back to the planning commission. So,
Any other comments from people here or elsewhere? You adjourn? Thank you. Laura.
Thank you. Sorry that my phone came on during the meeting.
Oh, I didn't.
I thought
Must be.
that was.
We off everything
I thought I had
here?
turned it off,
Not
I
yet.
apologize.
I don't even.
Thank you, everyone.
Now it's dead.
YouTube is still going. Let me
Kids telling me.
end the stream. I got to make sure that I try and save
Yeah, I
this.
know. That's why it's on there.
This is
And it
the
was good to
first-
see everybody's full face today.
I know.
It was really